All right. Let's wait for some people to get in here. There we go. All right. Well, people will come in when they feel like. Welcome to Lex Orandi Lex Credendi. I am Kenny, and well, I got a few things that I've actually had to sit and think about how I wanted to talk about it. That's why I haven't been on in a while. That and also just the business of life. This is not my day job, so I don't make any money off this. It's not where my income comes from. So I apologize for being gone so long for anybody who may be upset about that. Oh, but this last Easter, uh, or I should say Easter Vigil, when all the converts come in, I had noticed some very, very good signs. And it did give me some hope that, things were on the up and up. Because, I mean, aside from the fact that the Novus Ordo throws a lot more Latin Mass type stuff into it to make it more reverent for the season. I mean, I don't know why they think it has to be just during Easter and Christmas, but it's like, come on. Just do it all the time. It'll make more people come in. But anyway, but I had noticed there were actually a bunch of people that came in this time. The last time I remember seeing that many people come into the church is whenever I went in. I think there were a good, I didn't actually do a head count, but I'd say about between 15 and 20 people came into the church this last uh, Easter Vigil. And I was rather impressed, even for a Novus Ordo, that so many of the ladies were wearing veils. The men were dressed in suits. And when they did go up for their first Holy Communion, uh, they all got on their knees. Well, not all of them. Some of them did the irreverent, communion in the hand thing, but a good chunk of them actually got on their knees and received on the tongue. And I was highly impressed at what I had seen in a lot of the converts, and so that gives me a pretty good stretch of hope for the way things are going, even among Novus Ordo Catholics. You're getting all these younger people now. Inevitably, I think that over time, some of these uh, more reverent Novus Ordo Catholics that just came in this year will eventually try to seek out a traditional Latin Mass. And that is one of the things that people are just going to have to understand is that, if you're going to try to be Catholic, that's what's going to happen. You're not going to have much tolerance for the stuff that goes on in a Novus Ordo. But still, it gives me hope. It just means I'm not alone. Now, whether they would, at this stage of the game, totally agree with me about things like the TLM, maybe even the state of the church, they may not even know what's going on as far as a lot of the nonsense. But again, it's hopeful. There are people that are waking up to tradition even if they don't fully understand that that's what they're doing. And so I loved it. It brought tears to my eyes this year. It was a beautiful sight in an ugly atmosphere. And so, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It brings me tremendous hope, joy, and happiness to see that things are moving in that direction. Because it makes me realize that there are more people than just myself in this town that actually want to serve Christ the King the way he's supposed to be. Even again, if they don't fully understand it. Now, of course, all these converts, like I've said in past videos, past live streams, whatever, it is an artificial injection of young people into an increasingly aging and dying system. One of the things I do remember whenever I first became Catholic, we were told when we first came in that the reason they went through this 9-month process is because they wanted to make sure that you knew what you were getting into before you came in, which is good. I agree with that. I just don't think there should just be this cookie cutter, one size fits all 9-month program. That's just the way I see it. I don't think you should do that, because that in and of itself will run some people off. But whenever I was going through, they were talking about how, like, a lot of people will come into the church and they'll come in strong. They'll be there for like a few months, sometimes a year, and then they'll just disappear. They don't come back. Now, some of them probably they left for more traditional churches, but or parishes, I mean. But others either just left faith altogether, or they went to a Protestant church, or back to whatever false religion they came from. And unfortunately, I think that's going to be a lot of the people that came in on this Saturday, and I'm hoping they don't. I'm hoping they just dig deeper into tradition and don't get, disillusioned. I pray they do not get disillusioned. We need more people like them in this church. But again, it's like the whole immigration thing. It's, you're artificially bringing people in from countries that are completely Catholic or mostly Catholic, bringing them into the United States in order to basically fill the pews of the people who have lost interest in Catholicism as it stands in the Novus Ordo. And so, I still saw a lot of gray heads. I mean, that I expected. More young heads than usual, but that's normal during Easter and Christmas. You get a lot of the younger people coming to Mass that normally would not. They only come during Christmas and Easter. And so, but even with that, like, I've noticed just within the last couple of years, like before the Rona hoax, the church would just be packed out. And afterwards, like, yeah, okay, fine, the pews will be fuller than normal, but they're not. I don't have to go to Mass an hour early just to make sure I get a seat like I used to. I mean, I'm still going to, because the one time I'm thinking that nobody's going to show up is going to be the time they do. So I'm going to keep doing that. But my point is like, I literally went there an hour early, me and my wife, thinking that we had to get there early because people were just going to pile in, like, 30 to 40 minutes early trying to get a seat, and then we weren't going to be able to get a seat. And my wife is pretty picky about where she sits, so we have to make sure we get there early enough to get our seat. And nobody's allowed to touch it. Mm-mm. So anyway, so we got there, and we sat there for like 30 minutes with not even a third of the seats filled up. And that's a bad sign. That just means that a lot more people have actually dropped out of the church. Hopefully they haven't. They just went, again, they just started going to traditional parishes. But the more likely scenario is they were seduced by some heretical Protestant pseudo church, or they just stopped doing religion altogether. So, I mean, I don't know what to say about it other than that. You know, I'm happy to see new converts, especially new converts that seem to understand what they're supposed to do. Receiving on the tongue, wearing veils, wearing suits, dresses, all of that stuff. And I really hope that they're doing the first Fridays, first Saturdays as well. They just seem way more traditional this time around, and it's the most traditional I've ever seen. At least in any parish that I've been to. I've never been to a traditional parish when new people were coming in, so obviously they would all be traditional. But in Novus Ordo, not really. Now, and one of the other things that worries me is the Trad Catholic versus Novus Ordo Catholic wars. Now, I am the first person to say, like, yes, the Novus Ordo is garbage, and to the best of your ability, you need to get away from it. It's Protestant, probably very Masonic. I've seen images, and maybe one of these days I'll show the images up here. And I'm sure anybody who would be listening to me is probably listening to people like Taylor Marshall, who has shown these things. So has Kennedy. I think the Rundown's done it too. But a side-by-side comparison of the worship halls of the Freemasons side by side with the worship sanctuaries. I almost said worship halls. The sanctuaries of Novus Ordo parishes, and they're almost identical. You know, the only difference between the two is that you have Masonic symbolism in the Masonic temples, and then you have Catholic symbolism in the Catholic parishes. That's really the only difference between the Masonic, temples and, where they have their altar and how they have it set up, and then the Novus Ordo. And then, of course, whenever you compare it to a traditional Latin Mass, they're nothing alike. So my concern is that a lot of these people that come into the church, because I know it almost killed me, the trad wars. Like, because I just didn't know what side to fall on. I didn't know what to do with this information. But by the grace of God, he was able to, keep me on the path, so to speak. Unfortunately, I have not been able to get to a traditional parish except for like once in a great while. And so just, I guess, pray that the trad wars don't run off some of these new guys, especially the traditional ones. The ones that didn't quite do the traditional stuff this year, pray that they find tradition, and then pray that the tradition wars don't run them off. Just help them to realize that, these wars are happening for a reason. They're not good, but they're not bad either. And that's the other thing that I'm sick of. Like, I'm sick of the infighting between recognize and resist traditional Catholics stuck in a Novus Ordo, and sedevacantists. I'm just done with the fights. Like, they just all need to shut their mouths and quit. Like, if they want to have their debates on why one group thinks that we don't have a pope and why the other group thinks that they're wrong, we do have a pope. Fine, have those discussions, but quit like anathematizing each other. It's like, that doesn't help. That's how we ended up with the Eastern Orthodox. And of course, pray for the heretics in the Eastern Orthodox to come back. They still have valid orders, so all they would have to do is just be like, "Hey, we accept you," and come back. So that's all you would need there. So yeah, just pray that that doesn't run anybody off. Now, of course, the other thing was, it's like, the boomer generation. And disclaimer, I know that not everybody in that generation is the same. There are good boomers and there are bad boomers. But the boomer generation is the one that's like really clinging on to the whole Novus Ordo thing. And they kind of freak out when they see people like the ones that came in this Easter. When they start seeing people kneeling, receiving on the tongue, when they start seeing people wearing veils, you get varying reactions. Like I had that one lady that just, flipped out on me because I wanted all this traditional stuff. And then you have the boomers who are like, "Oh, that's nice. That's really weird, but that's nice." And then of course you get some that are, full on board with tradition. But that boomer generation is the one that's really holding back the progress of restoring the Catholic Church to its former glory. And it's going to be the younger generations after the boomers that is going to bring back tradition. So basically everybody from about, I'd say about my generation, I don't even know what my generation is, actually. I think I'm a millennial. I can't remember. I've never really kept up with that, other than I know boomers are basically my parents, and, go, and then I don't really know too much about it after that. But anyway, but all the generations from about mine, so we'll just say millennials and back, those are the guys that are going to restore tradition. Now, of course, with the insanity of the current generation going through schools, they're going through some major hellfire. But you're also seeing a lot of parents, fighting back against it, which is hopeful. Which means that they will probably be the generation that finally restores the church. Who knows? I mean, we'll find out. But we know the church will get restored. And I cannot remember this dude's name to save my life. I think it's Nick Cavazos, I think, is his name. I know his last name is at least Cavazos. I just don't know if, I can't remember if I'm saying it, if I got the right first name. But anyway, point being, I remember hearing him say a couple days ago that he believed that basically within the next 10 years, which God, please, yes, within the next 10 years, as the older generations die off and the newer generations are becoming more traditional, that there's going to be a major shift towards traditional Catholicism and a steady death of this Novus Ordo experiment. And so, hearing all that, seeing what I saw on Easter, I'm extremely hopeful. I love it. Like, and apparently, I'm not the only one that sees it, because I've heard a lot of people saying not the same thing, but very similar things to what I felt and saw and all that. So I don't know who else might think that this is hopeful for the future, but if anybody else thinks that our current situation right now with the converts, with the way things are going in the church, with the up and coming generations, hang on to that hope, because it's going to get better. Christ is King. So, praise God for that. Praise God for all of the progress that we have made over the years. And, this diabolical disorientation that we're going through right now will come to an end. All right, well, I'm getting to the point where I'm just going to ramble, so I'm going to call it quits for now. Until next time, Deus Vult.